You guys see me? Hear me? We good to go? Just make sure my phone's plugged in. Do not let the Giants get hot. They look like the Yankees. They look like the Yankees. I've been on a little staycation. You know, we all need a little time to recharge our batteries. And, just slow week, nothing going on. So I chilled. And now I'm back. YouTube. We're streaming on YouTube. We got podcast out. Me and Haberman just recorded a podcast. Haberman Middlekauff. Podcast out right now. 3 and Out podcast. Already have most of it figured out. Record a little later. That'll be out tomorrow morning. Content. Because mainly I got a lot of takes. Haven't given a take. I didn't even say it off social media. You know, Twitter's a negative place. I actually like Instagram. It's much more positive. I'm big into positive energy. Twitter gets fucking very negative. And, I played a part in that. Though I've changed my ways the older I've gotten. And I've just stayed away a little bit from Twitter. Though the NBA playoffs, the NBA free agency, that was fun. The franchise tags today. Woke up to Robbie Gould getting $10.5 million. We'll dive into that a little bit later. Some British Open odds. MyBookie.ag. Promo code HAM1. Go get your gamble on. I'm going to be highly leveraged on this British Open. I have some go-to picks. Talked about on the podcast. Ethan Strauss wrote a great article. You know who Chris Paul reminds me of? The California elites. We'll dive into that in a second. And then the Clowney situation's getting kind of interesting. But I have a couple new sponsors. The only way I survive is with my sponsors and my partners. They finance my life. So I got a couple new ones here. LegacyBox.com/ham. I have the box in the other room. You can send like old pictures, family heirlooms, things like VHS tapes of when you were a kid or your parents, whatever. And they will digitize it all on you to get in 2019. It's all digital. They've been around forever. Again, LegacyBox.com/ham. My other new sponsor, Box of Awesome. This thing's pretty fucking sweet. They send me this sweet duffel bag. They just have a million cool things, all for dudes. It's just basically a website of cool shit for dudes. You go to boxofawesome.com and you can pick any box. They're like under $50 value. They're all valued at a lot more. They have a bunch of different stuff. Just go check it out, boxofawesome.com. Use the promo code HAM. They sent me a sweet little overnight bag. So they're sweet. And of course, mybookie.ag, promo code HAM1. Get your gamble on. We got a lot to gamble on. Gamble on the British Open. We got, so much on the NFL. Over-unders, division winners, MVPs. I've dove into all this stuff on 3 and Out podcast. We've gone over every division, every over-under, talked about MVP odds, and we'll dive even deeper. Super Bowl odds. I love gambling. So we will talk about it. But let's start with Chris Paul. Because in this article that Ethan Strauss wrote, he went to Vegas for a couple weeks. He was around all the GMs. And I say this all the time. To me, there are two different types of reporters. If you're a reporter and you only talk to agents, I don't pay much attention to you. Because you have a skewed view of the way everything works. In pro sports, if you're an agent, your number one goal is to get your client paid. Why? Because that means more money for you. You're purely a businessman. All you care about is money. And in fairness, that's all you should care about. That's the only fucking thing that matters. All the BS about fit and what team he goes to, you want the highest dollar value because you're getting points off his total contract. So the more money he makes, the more money you make, the bigger your house is, the happier your wife is, the nicer school your kid goes to. And agents don't give a shit about the sport. They don't care about truly the team dynamics. They care about money. And they should. But a lot of younger reporters, they only get their opinions from agents. And it's pretty easy to figure out. And I tune you out. The reporters that talk to GMs, coaches, and executives, they're getting what the league thinks. And ultimately the league, if you're a general manager or coach, your number one goal is not money. Your number one goal is winning. Your number one goal is trying to win a championship. Trying to win games. So your opinion, to me, always matters more. and he got opinions from GMs, executives, and some players saying that Chris Paul kind of fucked him. And you know what Chris Paul reminds me of? He was the head of the union, and he fought for these Supermax contracts. Of course he fought for the Supermax contracts. He was a Supermax contract player. Reminds me a lot of California. We have some of the wealthiest people in the world that live in this state. And they're some of the politically the loudest. Well, we care about the poor and the homeless. They never shut up. Yet when you drive to their communities, they live on the top of the hill in these big fucking homes with enormous walls around their homes. So they love acting like the common guy, yet they ain't living with us. They live on the top of the hill in homes we can't afford. Yet they never shut up about how much they care about the middle class, the lower class, when in reality, they don't give two fucks about those people. I've lived here the majority of my life, and it's never changed. They don't give a shit, yet they're the loudest. Chris acts like he cares about the middle class of the NBA, but the reality is, as any human does, you care about yourself first. And most humans are inherently a little greedy. You care about yourself, and once you get a little bit, you want a little bit more. So I don't even necessarily blame Chris, because of course he's going to care about himself. He ain't worried about the guy making $4 or $5 million. He's worried about himself. Instead of making $25 million, he could make $35 million. Or $35 million, maybe he could make $40 million. That was his number one goal. And it worked. And it got him paid. But in the reality is it screwed over everybody. I say it all the time about taxes. People are like, Middlekauff, you're just some conservative. No, I actually don't vote. I'm in the middle. But when it comes to money, I'm anti-large taxes. Because it doesn't affect the multimillionaires. If I make $20 million a year as a businessman and an athlete or whatever, you raise the taxes on me, it doesn't affect the way I live. But when you incrementally raise the taxes on someone that makes $60,000, $70,000, every $1,000 when you make $70,000 is a big deal. Especially when you're talking about a family of four that makes a combined income of $80,000. So you tax them at higher rates. That has a massive impact on them than it does on the elite wealth. It's why the elite wealth in California in my lifetime, over the last 34 years, I'm almost 35 years old, they've only gotten richer. Because yeah, you can raise the taxes, and well, fucking we raise the taxes with the best of them in this state. It doesn't affect anybody. When you're super rich, you're like, whatever, pay an extra $1 million. It doesn't matter. Now, to them it matters, but their life doesn't change. Well, to me and you and just normal people, if you make just livable wages, it has great, massive consequences. When you hit 0.5%, 2%, 3%, that impacts us greatly. Just like Chris Paul. He went from 25 or 28 million to 35 million. It really didn't affect the way he lived. He was already worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He just got richer. Do you know who got poorer? The middle class. The middle class of the NBA, which again, on a relative basis, is already rich. But he claims, and this is why I think most unions are fraud, the dude at the top of the union, how does he relate to the dude at the bottom of the union? You say they're all equal, but they're not all equal. So the guy like PJ Tucker, or just an average NBA player, Kevon Looney, Chris Paul is not fighting for his best interest. Why? He can't relate to that guy. He can't relate to him at all. Just like when they say, the NFL is going to have a strike, or baseball is going to have a strike. You think that Bryce Harper and I don't blame Bryce Harper. I would not strike if I'm Bryce Harper. I'm making $30 million a year. Why do I give a shit about the guy making $800K fighting for an extra $800K? I don't relate to that guy. And at the end of the day, the only person that truly cares about you is you, so you worry about you first. Just like Chris Paul, he worried about himself first. Fucked everyone else. Him and LeBron and Russell Westbrook. And he helped all those guys get more money. The lower class, they've never gotten less money. Now, incrementally, relative, they might make more on a year basis than they did 10 years ago. But again, it's all relative. So that number hasn't gone up dramatically. We saw it this year in free agency. It was hard for the middle class to get paid. You see it in the NFL. The Khalil Macks, obviously the quarterbacks, but the Antonio Browns, the Odell Beckham, they get their money easily. It's the middle class that no one wants to pay. And I say it all the time about California. I'm like one of the only people that loves this goddamn state that talks a lot of shit about it. Because I know a lot of super rich people, and they don't give a fuck. I live in this quote-unquote ultra-liberal area. I played golf in Alamo today. You think they give a shit about the people in Oakland or the people in Martinez? No, they don't care at all. They don't care one iota. They just care about their enormous wall around their house at the top of the hill is big, and you can't see into their home, and they live like a fucking king. And all of us are scraping and clawing trying to buy a home. You know, just like Chris Paul. You think he cares that dude struggled to make some money this year in free agency beside the elite players? No, he didn't lose 1 ounce of sleep over because he got paid because he's living like a goddamn king. You got to be, these pro athletes got to be careful who they elect in these positions. You don't want a supermax guy. You wouldn't want Tom Brady fighting for the entire union. You would rather have like a fringe starter, a guy that can relate, because the top end guy are always going to make their money. It'll never change. But the middle class, that ebbs and flows. It really does. And they are always going to be the first in society, in sports, to get railroaded and get screwed over. And it happened in the NBA, and Chris Paul led the charge. And it's why I just saw a tweet that a lot of people in the NBA were laughing when he got traded to OKC. Because they were just happy he kind of got screwed over. Because he screwed over so many players. He's a snake. I mean, it is what it is. And I don't even necessarily blame Chris for having his best interests at heart. But he should never be in a position where he's leading the union. Him and LeBron should not be the guys leading their union. Because money doesn't affect their life. They're already so goddamn rich. They shouldn't be fighting for the guy that's biggest contract's going to be 3 years, $10 million. You know? It really isn't shocking looking back that Chris Paul was the guy responsible for screwing over. And again, when I say screwing over, I don't feel sorry for people making, you know, that accumulate 10, 15, $20 million in their life. That's still an astronomical amount. And everyone in society would die for that much money. The average American, you know, individual medium income is 50 grand. But I think we all relate to the middle class getting screwed over because it happens in just normal people life. It happens in pro sports life. It's just a constant theme of the way society works. I have a front row seat for it in the state that has had the greatest economic run, arguably in the history of America, these last 6 or 7 years. And we've never done less to help the poor people. We've never had more poor people. We have no housing for anyone to live. And it's why I always clap back when we're inclusive in the Bay Area when it comes to social issues. No one cares if you're gay. No one cares where you're from. 100%. No one gives a fuck around here. It's 2019. Besides like the South, no one cares anymore. But financially, we are very, very conservative around here. We don't help anyone out. The super rich people who never shut up refuse to help anyone. And it turns out, you know, at the NBA, there are actually a lot of parallels because they claim to be the progressive league. They're the same. They ain't helping anybody. The difference is you're not going to go hungry off making $3 million a year. But the reality is that guy making $3 million, if Chris Paul would have fought for him, maybe he would have been making 6 or 7. But Chris Paul didn't not only not have his best interests in heart when they were negotiating, he didn't give a fuck about him. He didn't care about him at all. And, you know, I think the players realized that you never want a guy like that running your union. To me, you'd want a guy like, I can just speak around here, like Sean Livingston running the union, you know, Rajon Rondo, guys that have been making normal wages even at the NBA level for a while. You wouldn't want LeBron running the NBA union. He only cares about the super rich guys. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. That's just the way society works. The franchise tag, you know, I'm a little torn on the Clowney thing. Iguodala would be, he's made a lot of money too, you know, but he is smart enough. I do think he would fight for the middle class guy, but he's got a $90 million contract, then he got a $70 million contract. He'd be right on the fringe. He'd be probably the richest version of who you'd want. I'm not a pin guy, I just like the hat. He's made a lot of money. Iguodala, I would imagine, has made $180 million. The franchise tags. Grady Jarrett got $68 million. I didn't see the guaranteed money. We'll dive into Robbie Gould here in a second, which was just a bizarre situation. I still think it's kind of bizarre where we sit today. But the Clowney thing is probably the most interesting. Here's where, and I talked about this on the 3 and Out podcast last week, the Texans are in a weird spot. Bill O'Brien, who I like, I support, I'm a big fan of Bill O'Brien. But he can't get along with anybody. Every single GM that he deals with They don't like each other. He's now on his third GM, but this third one doesn't even exist because like 5 people. He's had 2 GMs, one he handpicked and he fired him. So it's like, hey, Bill, I get it. You know, you're alpha, a type A. Fuck, most people in the NFL are. Most people in business are. But eventually you got to get along with somebody. And you can't get along with fucking anybody. So I'm just hesitant. The Texans roster on paper is really good. Like, they are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But I think that this issue that they have in their front office is a problem. Because their biggest competition in their own division is the Colts. Well, what do the Colts have? They have harmony. Their general manager is a high-level guy. He hangs his hat on. He gets along with people. Their head coach, clearly he's a pretty solid head coach. Those two get along. Like, what happens week 4 when a starting player goes down for the Texans and they got to pick what to do? Do they sign a guy for practice squad? Do they get first free agent? Do they make a trade? Who's making these decisions? Who's streamlining this process? The snake pastor that they just signed from New England, Jack Eckelbury, whatever that guy's name is? How can you have a pastor who's now kind of in charge of personnel? This is a guy that the players went to basically through confession and told things about their personal life. And now you expect, if I'm, Hopkins, I'm going to sit down with this guy and give confession on my life and he's a bad example because he's the best player on the team. But you know what I'm saying? Just an average player, and tell this guy about my, sitting down like I'm going into confession with a pastor and tell him about things knowing that motherfucker controls my contract. Like, that's a problem. I got the Houston Texans a massive red flag on their team. Like, they officially have a major problem. And I think it's Bill O'Brien's ego. And it's the ego to even have this guy around and put him in a position of power. Like, when Belichick had him around, he was strictly just the team chaplain. So if you had a problem, if you had something to get off your chest, you could trust this guy, sit down with him, and tell him things. And who knows, even in New England, maybe that guy was pumping Belichick the secret information. I know with like attorney-client privileges or your psychiatrist, they can't talk about you in a court or a trial. I don't know if there's the same rule with a team chaplain. I'm pretty agnostic, so I don't know the religious boundaries. But I know this. If I have any common sense, and I know this guy's basically the pseudo GM, but he's also the team chaplain, and I got a problem with my wife, my girlfriend, my finances, my whatever, I'm going to sit down with this guy and tell him my inner workings, knowing that he's just going to go back and tell Bill O'Brien, and then maybe they cut me because they think I'm a nut job. No fucking way. So again, massive red flag on the Houston Texans. And I think one of their biggest problems right now is just the ego of their head coach, who his ego is clearly oversized. And again, I'm a Bill O'Brien fan. I defend him online against people who think he sucks. I mean, some people, like on Twitter, talk about him like he's Jim Tom Sula or something. He's a pretty damn good coach. He's been there, 5 years? They made the playoffs 4 times? Or is it 3 out of 5? I know the one year that Deshaun went down, they missed. It feels like they made it every other year. Like, they've been pretty damn good. So, and last year they won the division, but they lost in the first round of the Colts, which wasn't a good loss. Let's get into Robbie Gould. On the most basic level, I got no problem giving him $10 million. The 49ers have no one else to pay. So paying $5 million, because they overpaid a little bit. But here was the thing. Like, they didn't bend over to Robbie Gould. They've been offering him a long-term contract now for months. Robbie Gould, this was not the weird part about, like, Jadeveon Clowney's holdout is about the money. Chris Jones' holdout is about the money. Robbie Gould's holdout was not about money, because they were offering him a franchise tag, which was $5.5 million. His last 3 years, he hadn't made that much money. So right now, they were just arguing over, he didn't want to live here. His family lives in Chicago. He has not moved them out to Chicago. He's lived in a hotel while he was here. He wants to go back to Chicago. And the Niners are like, well, we need a fucking kicker. We signed you when no one else wanted you. We're not going to rescind the franchise tag. We have no problem paying you $5.5 million. We had no problem paying you $10 million. Like, it's not like they just gave him this contract because the franchise deadline. They've been offering him this contract for months. He's the one that consistently says, I guess J.R. Smith's going to the Lakers. He's the consistently says, I don't want to play for you. That's what made this holdout so bizarre. It wasn't about money. It was strictly about, I don't want to be a 49er. So I still feel like even though he accepted this $10.5 million, which is 100% the right move on behalf of his family and his wife, he's doing a disservice if he didn't take this money. But I still don't think he wants to be here. Now, what does he do if he doesn't want to be here? Is he going to miss kicks on purpose? I don't know. He's kind of stuck. I just think the Lakers are desperate and JR comes cheap. LeBron likes JR, even though JR screwed up the one game, but LeBron likes him. And again, he's cheap and he's a clutch client. So, it's a little like Chris Paul running the Union. Clutch, it's a rigged game. It's like the rich in California. It's all rigged. If you're starting behind the 8 ball, unless you rig it for yourself, you're never getting past the 8. You're fucked. This is a tough part around here. JR isn't a likely destination to the Lakers, it said. Oh, isn't a likely? Lakers are unlikely destination. You're right. Misquoted. Giants are kicking ass. I gave my Melvin Gordon takes on last 3 Now podcast, Cliff Note version. I don't know what they do. I see both sides. If I'm Melvin Gordon, I know you're going to run me into the ground. Give me a little more money. I'm underpaid. But one of his angles was like, trade me. Well, hey, Melvin, no one's trading for you a pick that I'd be willing to trade you for, and then they're going to pay you. So, hey, bro, you're stuck here. You're stuck. We're willing to pay you like $8-9 million. He wants more than that. He wants Todd Gurley type money. I'll give you Le'Veon type money. So I think there's an impasse. There is just a full-blown fight right now on the value of running backs in football. The NBA guys in Ethan's article basically said, we treat big men now like the NFL treats running backs. People look at the running backs like the redhead stepchild, like the person that's easily replaceable, like the person like, whatever, I ain't paying them. But the reality is when you get a really good one, they are important. The problem is if you have an elite player, like the Giants, for example, they have Saquon Barkley, but the rest of their team sucks, you're going to suck. And then you got Zeke Elliott, who claiming that he might hold out a training camp. Like, Zeke, you just fucking got off the commissioner's office because, again, I don't put much stock into what he did in Vegas. It wasn't much, but you still were a pain in everyone's ass. Like, you just got to show up to training camp. I'm sorry. You don't get to kind of push around the Cowboys right now. But if he doesn't show up, what are the Cowboys going to do? They kind of need him. Just like the Chargers. The Chargers are trying to win the Super Bowl this year. Like, in their office, this is the year they win the Super Bowl. I don't agree with it, but they think they have a Super Bowl roster. On paper, they have a Super Bowl roster. Part of that Super Bowl roster is Melvin Gordon. I mean, he's probably one of their top 8-9 players, and he is important in the passing game. He catches like 50 balls. But they have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. They got Hunter Henry coming back. Their defense is really good. They think they have a Super Bowl roster. Now, the only way the Chargers would ever make the Super Bowl is they'd have to be the number 1 seed. Like, they're not going on the road to New England. They're not going on the road in Kansas City. They're not going on the road on Steelers in a cold weather environment. Now, you could say, well, Middlekauff, they did it last year against the Ravens. The Ravens rolled out Lamar Jackson that threw 40% on the game. So, yeah, I mean, they'd go on the road and beat the Ravens. But you're not beating Big Ben. You're not beating Mahomes. You're not beating Brady. You're not going on the road and winning. Now, if you told me they had the number 1 seed, I still don't know if they'd be the heavy favorite, my heavy favorite, but they would have a chance. They have to be in warm weather. Yeah, I wouldn't. The Raiders. I think the Steelers are going to be pretty good. I think the Steelers are going to be good. And when I say good, like 9-10 wins. I think they're a playoff team. I agree, but it's more the weather. Like, Phillip Rivers is not a cold weather quarterback because he doesn't have a great arm. When you get in the inclement weather, your ball goes even slower. It's a big deal. It's why Alex Smith always struggled in the playoffs. Weak arm quarterbacks don't thrive in the elements. They thrive on the West Coast. I'm a West Coast guy. I don't thrive in the cold. I might even have retired from skiing. I like the warmth. I like the lake. I like the sun. I like it about 85, 90. Hell, I don't even mind 100. I like sweating. I'd rather sweat than be cold. But I'm a West Coast guy. And Phillip Rivers, though he was born on the East Coast, his entire career's been out here. Just like Jared Goff, can't grip the ball in the rain. Derek Carr does not play well in the cold. When you're a West Coast guy, you don't do well in the elements. Brady's an outlier because he went to Michigan and then he spent his entire life in New England. He's now developed. He's a cold guy. But he's an outlier. Rodgers, he might be an outlier too. It's hot outside. I don't know what it is in Davis. I'm in Walnut Creek. I got no clue. Haven't listened to radio in years. What else is going on? British Open this weekend. My 3 picks are John Rahm, 16-1. Ricky Fowler, 30-1. Justin Rose, 20-1. Phil's 100-1. You know, he's lost 15 pounds. Gets mybookie.ag, promo code HAM1. I like Justin Rose. Marcus Simeon. Should Giants just... I mean, it depends if they can, win 7 straight this week. Has Henrik Stenson played well, though, lately? Feels like he's been kind of irrelevant. I kind of like Rory 9-1. I think Bosa's going to hold out some games. I agree. I've lost a lot of money on Ricky. Biggest player to move at the deadline? Probably Bumgarner. Stenson's playing well. I'll be honest, I haven't kept track on Henrik Stenson. Though remember a couple years ago, him and Phil went at it. I don't think the Kings will make the playoffs. But I do think I think they win 40, 41 games. Probably got to win 48 to get in the West. Yeah, I don't think the Niners have been offering him this contract for a while. Again, Robbie Gould wasn't holding out to get more money. He was holding out. He wanted them to get rid of him. He wanted to go to the Bears. And the Niners basically just said, we're never letting you go to the Bears. His franchise tag holdout was not like these other holdouts. It was basically fuck you, let me go. And they're like, no. They wanted to pay him. That's the thing. No college football takes as of right now. Give me a couple weeks, then I'll have some. I don't really know what the take would be. I think Clemson's stacked, Bama stacked. What's there to say? I guess my one take, it's the big year for Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh better win the goddamn division. And I'm a Jim Harbaugh homer, but you got, Urban is doing his podcast now on how not to recruit murderers and how to be a good human even when you are pro-domestic violence. So Urban's got his leadership podcast talking about who knows what. And Michigan has no excuse this year. You got to win the division. And if you win the division, win the conference, you go to the playoffs. Jim Harbaugh, you're 4 years in, or I guess this is going to be his 5th year. Time to make the playoffs, man. And again, I'm a Harbaugh guy, but it's time. Is this season Raiders last, or will they stay one more? I don't know. I don't know where the stadium's at. I'm not the biggest Shea Patterson guy. My thing is, though, if they don't beat Ohio State, he's not done. Who are they going to hire? But you can't lose to Ryan Day. So I would agree there. It is unacceptable to lose to Ryan Day. Shouldn't be allowed. But Harbaugh's beat Belichick. He's beaten good coaches. So I don't see why he shouldn't beat Ryan Day. Ohio State should not be the same. Ohio State should come back to earth. Cougars are on the ground. I forgot about him. I agree. Michigan's not firing Harbaugh. Probably go to a Niners camp 4 or 5. I haven't even thought about it. I don't even know when it starts. Next week? I don't even entertain going to training camps till pads come on. And even then, training camp's pretty overrated because nothing really happens. It's basically like OTAs with pads. Yeah, I'm not big on Ryan Day, but I don't know him. I have him red flag just by the way he looks. I know nothing about him. I would like to go to Rams camp. I actually might go to the LA Rams Chargers camp. Those would probably be the only. I mean, training camp's a little overrated now. Just there's no hitting, so it's not. Practices aren't even that cool. Training camp back used to be fun because you'd see scrimmages. They'd go 11 on 11. They'd tackle. That it does not happen at these camps. THC pen. I would wait a little bit for over-unders, yeah. Okay, adios. Godspeed. Again, legacybox.com/ham and boxofawesome.com promo code ham. Go get it. Go get it. Peace.